Welcome back to the Retro Sports Gamer channel. And this afternoon, I'm going to break down for you and recap the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament that happened last weekend in Fairfield, Ohio, as well as the precursor tournament the Friday night before the big dance, the RBI Baseball tournament. So let's see that. This was one of those trips that I took that was a few day trip. Most of the time that I've done these retro sports gaming tournaments, they've been 1 day trips or just one night. But this was a 2 night trip. We took the way up there was a van of 7 of us in the Mort Mobile. Mort rode us up there. It was me, Green Magic, Flo, Retro Nathan, Hank the Tank, Joey Gatz, and of course Mort himself driving the car. I've seen Mort's van many times. Did not know he had a pull-down TV for the trip, so that was pretty awesome. We got to play NES the whole way up there, and on the way back. On the way up there, we played a tournament. It was pretty well contested tournament, but Flo took that one. Retro Nathan was a tough competitor, and Flo beat me in overtime in the van tournament. But then we finally got to Fairfield, Ohio, after quite a few traffic jams getting there. It wasn't as smooth as a drive as my one to Columbus. But we went over there. We finally got to Fairfield, Ohio. Probably a little bit after the tournament should have started, so 6 p.m. Eastern time for the RBI tournament. The RBI baseball tournament had 12 competitors in it. Of course, you guys might have heard one of the guys running the tournament, not Chris Vogt, but his brother Matt Vogt, proclaimed that he's going to take both trophies, the RBI Baseball and the Tecmo Super Bowl, which I thought was a very bold statement. But as we go through the RBI Baseball tournament, we'll see just how he did. I was doing the stream for the RBI Baseball tournament. I didn't have the laptop that I usually use. The cord was left behind at Demon Tap, so I brought up the Mac to do it. The footage isn't as great as I wanted it to be, but we got the main Final Four and also the championship games on the channel. So if you want to check those out, see how everyone did, they're on there. The other videos are there as well from earlier in the tournament, just didn't come out as well because we were having some internet issues at Rick's Tavern. So once I got my hotspot going, we were able to capture the footage for the tournament. All right, so let me share my screen here. I'm going to show you the RBI Baseball bracket. So this tournament was thrown mainly by Chris Vogt, but he has a lot of help from the rest of his family there. And they really throw a great tournament. They're very enthusiastic about what they do there, and they're very welcoming. Okay, so here we go. We got the RBI bracket up here. So it consisted of pool play first. Chief Crazy Buffalo in the chat says, hey, man, hey, how's it going? So it consisted of 12 players. Everyone did advance. The pool play had 4 groups of 4, or 3 groups of 4, rather. The rules were you just could use 3 pitchers per 9 innings. So you could use any 3 pitchers. It didn't have to be a starter and 2 closers. I talked to Chris a little bit about that a few days before and thought that, you know, a few of the teams, if you mismanaged wrong with one of their starting pitchers and their closers, you can end up with a pitcher at the end of the game throwing 30, 40 miles per hour and just lose the game. There's a few teams like that that don't have the endurance on their pitchers. So he switched that up, and I don't think there were any issues with managing their pitcher. with people managing the pitcher because they had the access to starters, which they do have endurance. The thing about RBI baseball is each guy does have his own ratings, but they're not something you could access within the game. You have to go to the Dini forums is one of the places. Also, my buddy Brad Bell that runs Tecmo Bull versus RBI Baseball, he has the ratings on his website. You have to look on one of those websites to see what the player ratings are. So they have their own ratings. You just have to know what they are. And I think this being a free-to-play tournament the night before, I'm sure, you know, at least half or more of the tournament probably wasn't studied up on that. So the guys who did would have quite the advantage. So here's the bracket. The buys were Matt Vogt. He was the 1 seed. Francis, which is Mort, he had a 4 seed. Chris Vogt with the 2nd seed, and Joe Green Magic had the 3rd seed. So I don't think there were any surprises there. Green Magic and Mort play a lot of this at D-Men Tap. They're both really good players. And then we knew Matt and Chris were going to be good throwing the tournament. Matt, I believe, plays in some kind of leagues over there. But he definitely didn't disappoint in this RBI tournament. So first round, you had Adam versus Brian in a close game. Brian was in my pool. He was buddies with one of the guys there, Mark. Mark was a teacher. And he talked to me about how they looked at some of my Tecmo Super Bowl videos, me and Mort's videos, training-wise. And that was pretty cool. So they were really nice guys. I played Brian in the first round in pool play, and he really hung in there until like maybe the 8th, 9th inning. I pulled away, won by 9. But here, he lost in a close game to Adam. I played Greg. Greg was the guy that wearing the cheese head all day. He won the David Fulcher game, so he got to play David Fulcher. He didn't get anything going. I beat him in 2 innings by slaughter rule. This game, Nate versus Flo, Retro Nathan versus Flo. Both of these guys, not huge, not greatly experienced in RBI baseball, but both really good gamers. And this was one of the best games of the tournament. They went back and forth. I don't remember if it went to extra innings. It might have. But Flo was able to squeak out a win 9-8. So both of these guys were playing a few games on the ride up there. And they progressed really fast from where they started when we were playing in the Mort Mobile on the way to the tournament. Mark was he's a pretty good gamer. He was the guy I was just talking about that was the teacher that said something about my videos, but he beat Hank the Tank 6-4. Hank the Tank lost a close game in the Mort Mobile car in extra innings, but looks like Mark got the best of him there. Mark was a pretty good gamer. If he sticks with it, I think he'll start to make some noise in some of these tournaments. So then we got to the last 8 players. Matt looks like he had no trouble with Adam. Slaughter rule 11-1. Me and Mort had a very close game. I've played Mort quite a bit in RBI baseball. I think when we first started playing, I was better than him for sure. But since he played in the Tecmo Bowl RBI baseball tournament in Omaha, preparing for that, and then coming back with some knowledge from Brad and the guys up there, he's definitely passed me up just a little bit. But it was a close game, 4-2. He took the win, and I would say, yeah, he's a little bit better than me in RBI baseball right now. Chris versus Flo. Chris Vogt was in my pool. Chris's game is very unique because he gets you out with strikeouts. And Deontay's in the chat saying, Mort is such a retro sports legend. Yes, he is. He makes waves in all kinds of games now, not just Tecmo Super Bowl. But Chris, where was I at? Oh, yeah, I played Chris in pool play. He gets you out with just a lot of grounders, forces you to hit the ball in a bad position. He ended up beating me 4-0, which I don't get shut out in RBI baseball too often. It wasn't like he had overpowering offense, but I said he was kind of like the Greg Maddux of RBI baseball because he wasn't getting strikeouts, but he knew where to pitch to get me to just miss the ball so he can field it. Green Magic beat me in NBA Jam countless times. Well, they're playing in Tecmo Jam Cleveland right now, NBA Jam. So we'll see if I get any updates while I'm doing this recap of the Midwest. And then we had Joe Green Magic versus Mort. Green Magic Joseph, he's been playing a lot of RBI baseball. When he's committed to playing a game, he learns all the ins and outs, and he's a tough competitor to beat in any of these retro sports games because he really dives into them and learns about the game just from what he's seen on the field or on the court, whatever sport it is. But he was able to beat Mark 9-2. So then you had Final Four. We don't have the scores up here, but I could fill you in on these since I streamed these games. Matt versus Francis. They did have a pretty close game from what I remember, but Matt's a really good hitter. Mort's got good pitching. He really works the corners, but at the end of the day, Matt's hitting was just a little bit too much. Chris Fote versus Joseph. This was another close one, but in the end, Joseph just had a little bit more hitting. Chris is really good at RBI baseball. If he does have one weakness, it's that he just doesn't light up the scoreboard necessarily, but it was a close, low-scoring game from what I remember. Mort's real name is Francis. That's right. So then the finals was best out of 3. It was between Matt Vogt and Joseph Green Magic. Matt Vogt, he overwhelmed Joseph a little bit with his hitting. I talked to Joseph about the games that they had, and he just said, Matt's good at everything, but where he really shined was his hitting. Joseph, I don't think in one of the games he definitely didn't play his best game as far as the base running. Not his base running, but just taking care of the other runners or Matt on the bases. He was able to get a few extra bases, get a run or two just based off good base running. And Joseph fell to Matt in 2 games. So Matt backs up his talk saying that he's going to take both trophies, and he takes the RBI baseball. And, it wasn't a fluke. He definitely was the best player there in RBI baseball. I think, people can make some ground on him. I posted the games on the Dini forums just to see where those guys think that the players in this tournament stack up against the best, because I know there's some better RBI baseball players out there. But as far as this tournament, the best player was Matt Vogt, and he won it. So that was a good night. I drank a lot of Yingling beers after a hot car ride up there because Mort's air wasn't working, and we could only roll down one of the windows. So as soon as I got in there, started pounding some Yinglings, and it was a good night for sure. All right, so next day is the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament, and that's the main event. That's what everybody is there for. And let's look at that bracket. So I got that bracket too. But I want to talk about, before we do that, though, let me talk about the tournament and just my pool play. Rogue Gamer says, time to retire RBI for a while. Rogue Gamer tunes into the Demon Tap streams Monday night, and he's not a fan of the RBI baseball music. I think if the music wasn't there, he'd be a little bit better with it. But, Matt and Chris. Chris Fote is the main guy throwing the tournament. David Fulcher is there the day of the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament. He runs a foundation. So he kind of you could just straight donate to him, or you could donate a certain amount, and he will, give you like a helmet signed, or what I have. Let me show you real quick. I have this. This is what I got from him. It's him intercepting the ball, cutscene, Tecmo Super Bowl. He signed that. David Fulcher, he's one of the best defenders in Tecmo Super Bowl, if not the best. He has great interceptions. He's fast and high hit power as a safety. And, David Fulcher keeps himself in good shape because he looks like he could still play in the NFL. How cool is David Fulcher? Fulcher's a really easy guy to talk to. He's down for the cause. He's in there. He's talking to people. He's a fan of the game. Nice PlayStation shirt. Thanks. But yeah, so David Fulcher's there. That's a main draw of this tournament. But like I said, Chris, Matt, Jimmy Volt, the rest of the family, they're really welcoming, and they're just really happy to be throwing this tournament for people and have people show up and hang out with them in Rick's Tavern in Fairfield, Ohio. They give you a lot of he has custom t-shirt every year, which you get as part of the entry. There's also some other swag, pens, bottle openers. I think I got one of them here. Yeah, so Dos Equis bottle opener. Yingling. There's a shirt. I got a shirt and a Yingling hat. I think Chris gave that to me extras for helping out with the stream. But yeah, there's tons of space in this bar. They have good beer. The food's good, and the service was excellent. They don't let your beers go dry when you're playing Tecmo. It's easy to, when you have a big tournament like that, 40 people in the room, 40 people plus, it's easy to lose track of guys and not make sure that their cup is full. But they definitely did that. And the day of the tournament, I was drinking more water than beer until later. Yeah, free hats are the best. Yeah, it's not a bad hat. Yingling. Yingling's the oldest brewery in America. I didn't know that until going to this tournament. Good beer. Tough hangover. That's what I would say about Yingling beer. So if you do get a chance to try it, drink a couple and be done with it. So let's move on to the tournament. This tournament had 28 players in it, and now I'll share the screen and I'll talk a little bit about my pool play before I get into this. So in my pool, there was 4 players, so there's 7 groups of 4. Looking back at it and looking at the results of the tournament, I believe that the group that I was in was the second toughest group out of all of them. The first toughest being the group with Joey Gatz. Chris Vogt and Joey Gatz were both in that group, and they ended up in the Final Four. So that had to be the toughest group. But coming at a very close second was our group, as 3 of the 4 guys advanced to the Elite 8, and the other guy that didn't make it far was Kyle, which beat me in pool play. And I played him in the first round. So who knows where he could have gone if he didn't end up playing me in the first round. So in the pool play, I had to play Matt Diaz, Kyle Kuhlman, which is Eric Kuhlman's brother, and Kevin Molnar. Kevin Molnar, I learned about him playing at Tupa Bowl, and he did pretty well there. But I guess Chris didn't have a lot of data on him because he was the 4th seed in my group. And I was surprised by that because I knew he could play, because I saw that he advanced pretty far at Tupa Bowl 4. But anyways, first game I played was against Kyle, and he called Vikings Redskins. And Vikings Redskins really isn't a matchup that I like. The reason being is both quarterbacks are slightly below average, and you really don't know what you're going to get from them. So depending on how they decide to throw the ball that game could dictate the matchup, how it goes. In this one, I chose the Redskins because I played Viking Redskins on the Mortmobile ride up there, and I chose the Vikings, and I also lost that matchup. That was one of like only 2 that I lost in the car, I believe. But so I went with the Redskins. Hi, Troy. How's it going? I went with the Redskins instead of the Vikings. They just have a little bit more offensive firepower overall, and I like their speed at the corners. So you pretty much have to use both cornerbacks when you're the Redskins. That's who you're going to use on both sides of the ball. It was, playing Kyle, he was the only guy I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know he was Eric's brother, but talking to them later, they played a 25-game series the night before, and I guess Eric beat them 13-12. So these guys were coming prepared to the tournament. And he called that matchup, and I'm pretty sure if they've seen any of the videos that we do, that I've admitted that I don't really like Redskins Vikings that much. But he played great. There was a point in the game he was up 17-10. He had Anthony Carter and good. He got a couple JJ touchdowns to Anthony Carter. But, that's kind of how this matchup goes. But it was 17-10. He got me to go for it on 4th down, and he called my play. And that was the biggest turning point in the game. Pretty much before that, it was back and forth. And I think after he did that, that's when he sealed the game off with the second JJ to Anthony Carter, 24-10. And I think that's how this one finished, because after that, I just had to press, throw up balls, and Rippin or Humphreys, whoever I had in there at the time, wasn't making the connection. So good game by Kyle. He beat me. Talking to his brother Eric, he says he knocks off a better player every tournament, and he did it first round versus me. So good job, Kyle, beating me there. Next game, I played Kevin Molnar, and I knew he had some skill. He called the matchup in this Bills Giants. And last time this was called on me was Bloomington Tecmo, which I did go with the Giants. But this time I went with the Bills. I just feel like the Bills are just too much to handle offensively, especially the Jim Kelly to Andre Reed combo. And then having Thurman Thomas out of the backfield with 63 max speed. That's just too much to handle for even the Giants defense. I mean, if you're going to have any defense that could stop them, it's the Giants defense. But threw up a couple to Andre Reed. Jim Kelly was on fire this game. QB Bills. This was the one game that didn't come down to the wire. I believe I won 35-10 or 17, something like that. I scored on every offensive possession. I was able to get stops early. The Bills defense, it doesn't have the best interceptions, but the Giants don't. They just have a very good passing game. It's not anything that will overpower you with Phil Simms, 63 pass control. Their best receiver only has a 56 receptions. So the Bills are able to hang with that, and they got the defensive speed to hang with the Giants' running game for sure. And I was able to beat him for the first win of the tournament. My last matchup was against Matt Diaz, and this was on the stream. The stream was run by Derek Rubel, Tecmo Psycho. He did a fantastic job. He really has one of the best overlays, if not the best overlay in Tecmo Super Bowl right now. He had it running through Restream, so he's streaming into multiple places. He's got the chat running on the screen. He had all of the sponsors on the overlay flashing. He has a good mic. He had people coming in and out of the commentary. So Derek had the perfect setup for this tournament. And looking back at some of the old Midwest Tecmo streams, this one was by far the best. This is probably the best one that they've ever had, and Derek did a good job getting that all going. So where was I on that? So yeah, anyways, I played Matt Diaz on the stream. Matt Diaz, I know this was the first time I've met him in person. I knew he was a good player because reporting on some of the tournaments, he has multiple second place finishes. So I was playing him on stream. I got to call the matchup. I called Eagles Bengals. This is a matchup that I do like. I just feel like Fulcher's a good matchup against QB Eagles, and the run game of the Eagles doesn't really force you off of Fulcher. And, whenever a player takes the Eagles, they're going to be a little bit more limited with their man defender. And not playing Matt before, I didn't know how good his defense was, but with the Eagles defense, he's going to be a little bit more limited. This was really a great game, back and forth. It really came down to the fourth quarter. It was 14-14. He did get a couple stops on me, which if I could have done a little bit better on offense, that's how I would have been able to win this game. But he got some stops with the Eagles defense. So it was 14-14, about 4 minutes to go in the fourth. And his game plan was to drain the clock. And you could do that with the Eagles, QB Eagles, obviously tons of speed in the backfield, running around, draining clock, getting first downs, throwing some passes. And my strategy against the Eagles, if I play them, I'm like, I'm going to make them take as many plays as they want to get down the field and hope that they make that one mistake, whether it be a pick thrown into David Fulcher's hands or a fumble. Well, he drained most of the clock, and then within the last minute, he did finally fumble with QB Eagles, but it went out of bounds. So he's going to set up a field goal with 1 minute, the one chance that I had to get the ball and knock him off. The ball went out of bounds, and he was able to kick the field goal. Francis wasn't able to get in there, fourth man down on the line on the Bengals to block the field goal, and Matt knocked me off 17-14 to win the group. So he went 3-0, and then the other three in our group went 1-2. So congrats to Matt Diaz. He went 3-0, which I thought was in a tough group. So he played great, and he earned the seeding that he got for sure. It looked like he was a 5 seed. So let's finally talk about this bracket. I think this tournament that I went to, it was probably the most concentrated talent in a 28-man tournament that I've seen. I mean, as far as the tournament this size, it had the most talent that I've ever played in. I mean, you had multiple Madison winners in the tournament. You had Joey Gatz, Tecmo Psycho, Mort, and then you had Matt Vogt, who just got second at this last Tecmo Madison. And then you got guys who've just done great at other tournaments as well. Besides for a few guys that I didn't know, I've seen a lot of the guys around doing big things at tournaments. And, there were a couple guys newer, but I would say, it was probably 24 deep, 20 to 24 deep out of the 28 that really had a legitimate shot. I'm sure some of the other players would say that there was probably 10 to 12 that had a legitimate shot to win. But, it being single elimination up until the final four, you could definitely see some knockoffs and upsets leading up to it. But anyways, looks like we had a game between Ryan and Aaron first. Is that – I'm not sure if that's Ryan McKay. Yeah, it was probably Ryan McKay beat Aaron 14-10. Ryan, he plays third in Tuba Bowl, so we knew he was going to have a tournament and a good tournament. And this was one of the guys that was up there and as a challenger to possibly win this tournament. Then I think a little bit of an upset, but not really. Chris Hendershot, he's just the guy that can knock you off at any time. I saw him beat Mort for Mort's only loss at Tuba Bowl, but he beat Jim Sox 17-10, and Jim Sox was first seed in his pool, and I think Flo can't talk right now. I think Flo beat him in pool play. The next game you had AJ. He helps run the tournament over there versus Jimmy Vogt. I think this might have been one on the stream. If you guys want to check out any of the streams, they're on Tecmo Psycho's Twitch. So twitch.tv, and then look up Tecmo Psycho. He clipped up all the games for you. So this one, 2017, I think everyone was a little bit surprised by that, but he beat Jimmy in that one. Then we had Kevin Molnar beating Eric. I was sitting right next to them when they were playing that game, and Eric said he had 4 fumbles with the Bears, and he just wasn't able to overcome that. And Kevin's a good player, so he squeaked out the win there. Diaz versus Greg. Greg looks like he had the bottom seed of the tournament, and Diaz won that one easily. Greg, I played him at the satellite tournament and he's a competitor, but you know, his offense comes and goes, and it looks like he wasn't able to get anything started there. Then you had Adam Krebs, Super Duper, versus Hank the Tank. I didn't get a chance to watch this game, but I saw at the end of the game, Hank the Tank was pretty pissed. He was kicking some chairs and stuff. I don't know what happened in the game, but he wasn't happy about it, and he took a early exit to the tournament. Another thing I want to say is they had a consolation tournament for the people who got bumped out in the first round. So it's always nice to see extra effort at the tournament to keep people playing, hanging around, having a good time. Now, next game was me versus Kyle, and I talked about how Kyle beat me in group play. And I felt like if I won the toss versus Kyle and I got to call the matchup, I would be able to take him. But it's unfortunate for him that we had to play each other again, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to play him for the second time at the tournament. I got to call the matchup. I called Dolphins, Lions, and he went with the Dolphins. The Lions, I've had times where I've really struggled using them, but lately, especially in the hardcore championship in Chicago, I was just grooving with the Lions. I didn't lose a single game using the Lions, and I probably used them like, I can't remember if it was 4 to 6 times, but most people probably go Miami in this, but I feel like offensively with Rodney Peete and Andre Ware and their quarterback max speed, and then also giving me the second fastest running back in the game, Barry Sanders. Their defense is just as workable as the Dolphins defense. You know, they got multiple 56 max speed guys. This was a pretty good game for a while. The thing about Kyle is I really couldn't get his play calling at all. I think I brought this up to him like after halftime. I'm like, I think we played each other for 6 quarters and I have not guessed one of your plays yet. And as you know, guessing the players' plays is a huge advantage because everyone goes in and blitzes, and it usually stuffs that player, makes them make a mistake. But I couldn't even guess one of his plays. So he hung in there first half. I think it was only maybe 10-7, something like that, or 14-7. But anyways, second half I pulled away. After I said that, I was able to guess a couple of his plays, and I pulled away 21-10, I believe was the score. It's not up here, but it was a good game. But I really like that matchup. I love using both teams, and that's really the kind of matchups you want to call. Next matchup was between Retro Nate, and Jason. That was a pretty close game. Jason had a lower seed in the tournament, but Nathan's a really good player. He finished Elite 8 at this last Tecmo Madison, so he's really improved his game, and I think he's one of the elite players out there. But he got that win, and then he moved on to the next round. Then you had Joey Gatz versus Brian. I think Brian was one of the newer guys at the tournament that came there with Mark, and Joey Gatz was able to beat him 21-0. Then you got Green Magic versus Mark. Mark said the first game he played in the tournament, he was newer, but he played Joey Gatz, and he said he only lost 24-21. So he's like, wow, the first tournament I ever play, and I play the best player, Joey Gatz, and I only lost by a field goal. So, you know, good on him. But it looks like when he got to the bracket here, Green Magic, Joseph Moore was able to take care of him 21-0. Chris Vogt against Brian. So there was 2 Brians, so I might have mixed up the Brians, so I apologize about that. But Chris Vogt was able to win 31-3. Chris is a really good player. I never played him or saw him play until this tournament. And I was under the impression that like Matt was way better than him or just a little better than him. But no, Chris is an elite player. and he proved that with how he finished in this tournament. And then the last game on here in the first round was Jordan versus Greg, and Jordan Woodshed was able to advance 23-7. I actually didn't know his name was Jordan until he just won Tecmo Cleveland yesterday. I just knew him by Woodshed, so he's obviously a real good player, and he was one of the guys that could have taken this tournament. So then you move on to the last 16 players, Sweet 16. Derek, Ryan, McKay, they faced off in pool play, and Derek beat him for the second time. Their pool play game was a lot closer, went to overtime, but this one, I think Derek ran away with it. Then you had AJ versus Chris Hendershot, lower seeds in the tournament, but both good players. And AJ, he took the win versus Chris. So now I don't really have the scores, so I'm just kind of reporting the results. I'll fill in if I know what happened in some of these games. Kevin versus Flo. This was a big upset. I played Kevin earlier. He's a good player, but I was able to take him. Flo, I talked to Flo about this game, and he said that he did make a passing mistake where he didn't really need to throw the ball. And that mistake is what ended up costing him the game. And then Kevin moved on to Elite Eight, so good job. Another good run for Kevin. Matt Diaz versus Adam. Diaz moves on. The next game, me versus Matt. Vote. This was the matchup that I really wanted in this tournament. Was going back and forth with Matt a little bit the week before the tournament, saying that I don't think you're going to win both tournaments. So I got to play him. I got to call the matchup Bucks versus Broncos. This is a matchup that I've liked more recently just because of for a lot of reasons. I like using Tampa Bay, but also Denver gives you a little bit better running game. The max speed of Elway and also his passing speed is kind of nice. So even though his pass control is terrible, he's got like those two unique abilities that no one else really has quite like them. But Matt went with the Broncos, and really I think I set the tone for the matchup when I drained 7.5 minutes to score my first touchdown. And I got multiple fourth down conversions on that drive as well. I have a good moment to talk about from this game. So I was playing Matt Vote on the stream, and during this drive, I hit a 4th down and 3, I believe, and Joey Gatz was sitting right next to me, and he basically says, you have to go for the field goal. He just says it out loud, and then I look over to him, and I'm like, I'm playing for the win. So I basically told Joey Gatz, like, I'm not kicking a field goal here. That same play, I scored a touchdown on Matt and went up 7-0. Next drive for Matt, though, he scored so quick in probably 4 or 5 plays to tie it 7-7. Second half starts. I believe he gets the ball first. I'm able to hold him to a field goal. My next drive stalls out on a 4th down midfield. But then Tecmo gave me a nice fumble. So he fumbled. I got it back the very next play. Was able to drive down for a field goal. Then we're in the 4th quarter, and Matt's basically just trying to drain the clock to kick a field goal to win the game. He starts using Bobby Humphrey more, not throwing with Elway, and I think it was a smart decision by him, because if Elway just throws one bad pass against that Bucs secondary, he could throw away potentially the game. So he did more running with Elway and Humphrey on this drive. He set up the field goal perfectly. He did everything he had to do, but Haddix was in good or excellent condition, and I was able to block a field goal with Haddix to force overtime. I knew I was going to have that chance because on an earlier field goal, I was basically wrestling with the placeholder, the kicker. So got the huge field goal block. Got it in overtime. He guessed, like, the biggest play in overtime for me is he guessed my pass 3, which was the split back formation. And I just rolled out with Vinny, and Hall, he looked open. but there was guys in the backfield ready for him. But Vinny Testaverde's known for those random JJs, so he threw one midfield. Ron Hall comes up with the big grab midfield, 50-yard line. After that, just run a few plays to get in a field goal range. And with my thinking was at the 35 with the Bucks, with one of the best kickers in the game, I have the game in my hands. I'm really confident in my field goal kicking. There's no one on Denver that's a huge threat to come block the field goal. I'm like, the game's in my hands right now. It's first down. I'm just kicking it now. Kick the field goal, get the big win versus Matt, and that's what I came to this tournament to do. Got the win versus him, and it was a well-played game by Matt. I mean, it could have went either way. He was actually in the driver's seat at the end. It just the way things worked out, I was able to get the W. Then we had Retro Nate against Joey Gatz. So it seems like we got Roman back in the chat. Longtime viewer, always have missed your live streams. I love how you guys have the rosters broke down and known so well. It's impressive in its own right. Thank you. Yeah, we'll continue to do stuff like that, break down the rosters, give you more information about each game. I know Green Magic, he's big on NBA Jam TV right now, so he'll be able to tell you more with that. So as we continue to look at these games in more depth, we can give more knowledge about each game. But moving on back to the bracket, it looks like Nathan always runs into Joey Gatz at some point in the tournaments. I think at Tecmo Madison, that's who eliminated him. He played him in this tournament, and then just yesterday at Millard's Mayhem, he was in the finals against Joey Gatz, which he lost. So Joey Gatz is the guy he needs to get over the hump over. If he does that, he's going to start winning tournaments. But I talked to Nathan about this one a little bit, and Joey beat him 10-0. Don't know what the matchup was, but Nathan's like, hey, I had played good defense. I held Joey Gatz to 10. I just couldn't get anything going. Then we had Mort versus Green Magic, and I should know more about this, how this game went, since I went there with both of these guys, but don't have too much recollection on it. I know playing Mort and Green Magic, Mort's usually got his number and most of our numbers in Chicago, so he was able to get the win there. And then we had Chris Fote versus Woodshed. Woodshed, as I stated, he just won Tecmo Cleveland. Chris Fote was able to get the win there, so Chris was playing great. Beat another tough opponent. Then we move on to the Elite Eight. You got Tecmo Cycle, the number 1 seed, versus AJ Fulham. And I think finally AJ ran out of gas. Not quite sure how this game went, but to this point, it looks like Derek was the favorite in that, and he took it. Then we got Kevin Molnar versus Diaz. I think at this point, Kevin had a great run, but running into Matt Diaz, he's one of the best players at the tournament. I think I remember seeing that Diaz won this game pretty handily, and he went to the Final Four. Then so the win against Matt Vogt got me a chance to play Joey Gatz again. So going back-to-back, Matt Vogt versus Joey Gatz, that's not the road to the Final Four you really want to take. But I got to play Joey Gatz again. I called the matchup in this one. And I think that's the only thing I regret about this game is the matchup that I called. I had my matchups on my phone, but we're using that as the hotspot, so I really didn't refer to it. I called the Eagles-Giants, which I said if I'm going to go down to Joey Gatz, I might as well give myself a little extra cushion with QB Eagles, but I don't think that was the best strategy. I did beat Joey at the hardcore tournament in a Packers over Cowboys, so maybe I should have went a little bit lower on the tier list. But anyways, the way this game went, Joey Gatz had the Giants, I had the Eagles. He scored on his first drive, then he stalled out my drive, got me on a 4th and 15, and I really didn't want to go for it that far out. So I ended up punting. He scored again. And then what happened at the end of the first half was probably one of the bigger well, it definitely was a bigger play in the game. I got a JJ down at the 3-yard line with about 30 seconds left to go after driving down the field, and I fumbled and he recovered. So I was down 14-0 at the half. It was an uphill battle, and we got another comment from Roman back playing 2K17 Tecmo with the updated rosters. Love to see you guys break down the new Tecmos like you have the old ones. Sorry to get you off track from the bracket. Yeah, we can possibly do that in the future. They're annual titles, so you know it would be fun to break them down. We might play some of those games. It's just, you know, with the annual titles, those videos kind of expire quick because it's like it's on to the next one because they're coming out with one every year at tecmobowl.org. But anyways, back to the game with me and Joey Gatz. Halftime, I get the ball back. I'm able to score. Joey gets the ball back. He scores. So I'm down 21-7. I get the ball back, and I'm marching down the field. It looks like I'm going to score pretty quick, but Joey does a great job in the red zone, making me really earn it. I think I was on like the inch line at a point, and I had to end up going for it on 4th down, which I did get the touchdown with about 2:30 left in the game. So I still have a chance to stop him and come back, but he blocks the extra point with Lawrence Taylor. So it's 21-13. And Joey reacts to this blocked field goal with the fist pump, stands up, and you know, I kind of wasn't even thinking about it because you just like extra points, you just click, and you just expect to hit it. But Lawrence Taylor is one of those guys who can block those, and that was deflating because that pretty much didn't give me any chance to win that game. I kicked the onside, and I think he took it back for a touchdown or close, and then he scored on the next play. So I went down to Joey Gatz 28-13. If I had to do it again, I'd pick a different matchup, give me a better defense. But great job to Joey Gatz. He was on his A game. I couldn't stop him. Arcana Sam, hey, like Tecmo Bowl for the NES? Of course, I like Tecmo Bowl for the NES. It's the origin of Tecmo Super Bowl. Then we had Mort versus Chris Vogt. This is on Tecmo Psycho's Twitch.tv. He clipped this game up. This was on stream. It was a Chargers Redskins matchup, which Chris really likes the Redskins, but he was the Chargers in this matchup. And looking back on the game, this was one of those games where Rippon and Humphreys just sucked it up for the Redskins. Chris played very well. The opportunities that he got, he cashed in on them. Mort, being the player that he is, how clutch he is, he's down 17-7. He puts himself in a position to, like, at least he puts it 17-10 and to at least like make a late run comeback, but he falls short, and Chris Vogt moves on to the Final Four. So well played by Chris. Chris is running the tournament and playing well in his own tournament. Then we went to the Final Four. It's not filled in on this, but the Final Four was Derek, Tecmo Psycho, Matt Diaz, Old Dirty Tecmo, Joey Gatz, and Chris Vogt. So at this point, they do double elimination Final Four, which I don't mind. It's more games, more action. So breaking this down, how it went. So you had Derek versus Diaz. Derek won that game against Matt Diaz. Then Joey Gatz played Chris Vogt. It was a tight game, but Joey Gatz was able to win this one. Then it was so the top two without a loss were Tecmo Psycho and Joey Gatz. You know, two of the best Tecmo players in the world. I don't think anyone would question that. But you know, Derek struck first in this one, was up 7-0, but Joey played tough, worked it back to him up 14-7. And the biggest play that changed this game was Derek on that kick return fumbled, and it was a scoop and score. So then he's down 21-7. So, fumbles are bad. Scooping scores are even worse. Against the, in a hole against a guy like Joey Gatz, it's tough to come out of. But Derek did his best to get back into this game. He actually managed to score a touchdown and get Joey to punt. So he had at least a Hail Mary attempt to tie the game. But I think he was the Chargers in this, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be tough for them to connect on one of those passes. They're just not one of the better passing teams. Yeah, Matt Diaz is a Tecmo boss. Roman Bag says, I'm a huge Raider fan. Notice in your tournaments, not many people use them, and in your tier system are rated high. What's the deal there? In my local tourneys here, they ban me from using the Raiders. The Raiders are probably in the range of like the 5th to 7th best team in the game. The reason being is they don't have good quarterbacks. They have tons of speed on offense, tons of speed on defense. Defensively, though, they don't have a high interception rating, which means they're not that good against the pass either defensively. People do use the Raiders in these tournaments. I know Tecmo Psycho versus Ryan McKay, the first game of the tournament, was Bears versus Raiders. So you definitely will see them. It's just a lot of guys don't call them in a matchup because they don't want to play against Bo Jackson. They don't want to try to defend him because he is really tough to deal with. If you make one mistake, he could take it for a touchdown, which not every running back can do. You can usually catch up to them. Yeah, the Raiders are better than the Lions. Yeah, the Lions are a good team. They're a lot of people think they're mid-tier. They're probably a higher mid-tier, depending on how you use them. They don't have good quarterbacking as well, but they have a ton of with him and with Pete and Andre Ware, they have a lot of max speed at quarterback, which makes them scramblers, makes them harder to defend. Defensively, they're a little bit above average. But moving on to the bracket here. You had Chris Vogt versus Matt Diaz on an elimination game. This one wasn't on stream, but it came down to the very end. I remember, I think Diaz was in the driver's seat to close it out, but then he threw a pick, and then Chris had a chance to throw up a Hail Mary to win the game. And he came up short, but that was an exciting game. Even though it wasn't on stream, you had pretty much the whole bar huddled around that game. And Diaz was able to get the win. Then you had Diaz versus Derek. Didn't watch too much of that game, but I know Derek, talking to him, he was pretty deflated about that game versus Joey Gatz, which kind of ruined his motivation a little bit for this Final Four. From what I remember seeing on the stream, it was kind of like their first game where Diaz didn't get any breaks. I don't think Derek got any breaks in that game, and Diaz was able to beat him in that one. So those guys had two games versus each other, and both were a little bit lopsided. So Derek ended up getting Tecmo Psycho third place, and then you had a Diaz-Joey Gatz game. Diaz having to beat Joey Gatz twice. Another game that was on stream, of course. It's a finals game. The one thing I do remember about this game is Diaz worked it to the point where he was down 24-17, and he had a chance to throw up a Hail Mary JJ to tie the game. There was excitement. He threw it up. He timed it right, but no success. Joey Gatz wins the tournament. Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl champion. In a field like this, that's very impressive for anybody to come out of it. Anyone to go to the Elite Eight Final Four is a huge accomplishment just because this field was loaded with talent. But Joey Gatz wins it, and he continues to be the favorite in this tournament, and everyone looks at him right now, and probably for a long time is the best Tecmo Super Bowl player of all time, and he continues to prove it in these tournaments. He has tons of reps. He loves the game, and he just continues to succeed, winning back-to-back weekends this tournament and Millard's Mayhem in Minnesota against Retro Nate. Roundback in the chat says, sorry for distracting you from the bracket, man. I've never been able to catch you live, and I have always had a few questions. No problem. That's why I go live. It allows me to interact with people who are watching. And I enjoy doing it. Yeah, Gats seems to win them all. He's a tough opponent. He didn't win the hardcore tournament, the hardcore championship. I was able to beat him there. That was the first time I played him in years. He's just a really good player, and he's on top of his game. He doesn't make very many mistakes. Another thing about Joey, playing him in the matchup in the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl, like, he was getting mad if he didn't get his player out of bounds. So he takes it seriously, and he wants things to go a certain way. And if they don't, he's not happy about it, because he wants to make sure he doesn't get any fumbles or anything. Like, he controls the whole game, which he does a good job doing. So, but again, congrats to Joey Gats and the top 4 finishers. Matt Diaz, Chris Vogt, Tecmo Psycho. It was a loaded field, and those guys were the best of the day. And it was a fun tournament. All in all, one of the best I've ever been at. I recommend it to anybody. The David Fulcher being there for his foundation, that's really key. That's awesome. And he challenged everyone at the tournament on the mic to each guy refer 4 players and get that place pumped up with people in it. And they have tons of room. They could do it. I mean, the place is huge. They have live music, stuff like that. They could fit a Madison-sized tournament in there if they really wanted to. It's that big. They could. I know they're not going for 200 plus people, but they could fit it, So I wish these guys success and continue to grow this tournament. This was the 11th one, so one of the longer running tournaments in the country, and it's one of the best too. So I'm glad I got a chance to play in it, and I thank Chris and the rest of the votes for throwing this one. So we got Ron back in the chat saying, I live in South Central Kentucky. You guys do anything close to here? Haven't heard of anything in Kentucky. I know there's a tournament coming up in New Orleans on September 8th. New Orleans, there's one. There was one in Atlanta, but that's come and gone, or it got canceled. I can't remember. You say you got 8 to 12 guys here locally that do tourneys here at my house. We have them once every 4 months for the past 2 years. Next one, we are switching up to the 2K17 one. That's cool. There's a lot of stories like that of guys continuing to play Tecmo Super Bowl with their local friends. I recommend everyone to come try one of these tournaments. Get to the closest one you can. But this one with the hospitality the votes have at the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament, it's one of the best. So that's not too far from Kentucky. I would recommend checking this one out. I'll have links to their Facebook, Twitter, website in this video's description. So check those out and possibly come to one. Cleveland's about 7 hours from here. Yeah, Cleveland just had their tournament yesterday, so you missed out on that one. It'll be another year for them to throw another Tecmo tournament, but they have a great tournament as well. I think they had over 60 players. But this is, like I said, this is one of the best. David Fulcher being there. No one has a high-profile Tecmo Super Bowl player like him at their tournament besides the Midwest, so it's definitely worth it to check it out. Trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about. On the way home from the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament, obviously we still had access to the Mort Mobile screen and Nintendo. Mort did a great job all weekend setting it up for us, and he wanted to drive the whole time. One of the fun things that we started doing was the 2-on-2 games. So we did do a fantasy draft. The Pro Bowl teams, me and Retro Nathan played against Flo and Green Magic in the car. And we drafted our teams using the Cascadia Effin Tecmo League Excel sheet, I think that Brewdog built. So we used that. We bumped the salary to 120 instead of 100 since the Pro Bowl guys all get a a knockdown. But Flo in a 3-game series, Flo and Green Magic got me and Nate 2-1. I played good in that, but when it came down to the last half against Green Magic for the game, he beat me. He was calling my plays. He plays me too much, and he knew what I was doing. So it was just a fun trip overall. Definitely want to do one like this again, where I can spend a weekend. It's a little bit tougher with the family here, but if there's one that I want to do like this, 1 or 2 a year, this is one I want to be at. So Roman back if you're in the chat, which it looks like you still are, this is one you want to check out. You have a strategy gameplay question, if you don't mind. I see most of you guys play defense using the fastest DB most of the time. Me, myself, prefer using a defensive end like Howie Long. Well, it really just depends on the formation of the offense. You don't want to put yourself in a position where a running play is coming at you, because the blockers have a good chance of knocking you down, and then your opponent could break a big run. There's nothing wrong with using a defensive lineman like Howie Long, especially Howie Long, because he has a little bit higher interception rating with 31, so he can play a little bit of pass defense as well. So it really just depends on the formation. You don't want to use Howie Long on the run 3 sweep down, because he's going to get blown up. So you just have to be careful with that. You have to look at the offensive play. Is a big turn in a big tourney, is that a death sentence? No, it's definitely not. Like I said, you just don't want to get run at. You basically are going to switch between top side defender and bottom side defender the whole game. The Raiders give you different options. I would say if you're just going to go with one guy the whole game, then you want it to be Eddie Anderson, the topside safety. But Howie Long's a good option below. You let the drones take care of the pass D. Yeah, that strategy is not going to work at a tournament. You can't blitz in every play, because you're going to get taken advantage of. Because even if you get guess pass, there's going to be receivers open. And against elite talent like this, they're always going to find the open guy. That will work sometimes. You want to use the blitz more as to catch your opponent off guard type of thing, but as just every down strategy. I don't see that working at a tournament. But like I said, you're always welcome to come to the tournament and prove us otherwise, because we have seen some players do some unorthodox things and be successful with it. So just let me know if you have any more questions. I'm going to end this pretty soon. But I just wanted to recap this tournament. Had a great time at it. And want to be there next year. I know they're already thrown out our early bird special, $30 for the tournament, which is $5 cheaper than last year. But it'll probably be good for only so long. Always wondered that. I watch you guys play, and you guys play way different than I do. Yeah, you really have to just come experience it at a live tournament. Like I said, get to one of these tournaments if you can. Ohio's got 3 good ones in the summertime, but you missed all of them. Tupa Bowl was in May. This one that I'm talking about was July, and then Cleveland was just yesterday. So get to one of those if you can. If you want to make a trip to Chicago, we throw tournaments here quite a bit. We also the big Tecmo Players Championship is coming up September 22nd, and that's going to be a high stakes money tournament that I'm really excited for. I'm getting prepared with the matchups that I'm going to call for that one, and that's the one Mort's throwing, and I'm excited for it. So I hope that all the enough elite players see this as a great opportunity for them to make some cash playing one of the games that they love the most. But I think I'm going to end it up here. Rolling back, thanks for chatting with me at the end of this video. And Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl, guys. This is the recap. RBI Baseball. Hopefully they keep that going and that continues to grow. And is the bar we play at in Chicago? Yes, Demon Tap in Chicago. It's roughly Belmont in California. So we'll be streaming live from there tomorrow night, as we do most Mondays. And I'm going to check in with these guys playing in the Tecmo Jam Cleveland NBA Jam TE tournament to see how they did, because I know when I started this, it was getting down to the nitty-gritty near the finals. So if you have any more questions, just comment in the this video. Just ask them there. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. If you listen to this later, just comment. Let me know what you think of Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl, and if you got any feedback for Chris and the rest of the votes. So have a good evening and take care.